I watched my wife transform right before my eyes. It was as if she had slipped from my grasp like fine sand. Harper had once been the love of my life, a partner who shared my dreams, matched my ambitions, and walked beside me with genuine warmth. Now, every morning began with a clenched stomach as I pulled into our driveway in Riverview, the familiar landscape turning into a battlefield where her desires constantly clashed against our reality. As I parked the car, I braced myself for the disappointment that I felt bubbling beneath the surface, an unwanted visitor that wouldn't leave. Stepping inside our small home, I could see the evidence of her transformation scattered everywhere. Designer bags lay flamboyantly tossed carelessly onto our faded couch, their bright, shiny surfaces winking at me like taunts. It hurt to see the stark contrast. The couch that had once embraced moments of laughter and love now held the weight of betrayal. I took a slow breath, drowning out the sounds of the world outside. The street was buzzing with laughter and life, yet here, in this suffocating cage, I felt utterly alone. "Hey, you're home early?" Harper called out, her voice dripping with a forced cheerfulness that felt heavy in the air. She appeared in the hallway, her smile bright but her eyes dancing too quickly, like flames flickering dangerously. The blouse she wore hugged her frame, a designer piece that radiated with prestige while my heart sank deeper. "I was just about to try on this new dress. Want to see?" I forced a smile, knowing that my honesty would do little to ease the tension that had coiled around us. "I think I'll pass," I said, my voice flat and weary. I watched as her smile faltered for a moment, but she quickly masked it with enthusiasm as she twirled, the fabric flaring out like a peacock's plumage. My heart ached. Was I even a part of her world anymore? "Come on, you know you want to," she urged, stepping into the living room, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "It's stunning, you have to see it on me." "Harper," I began cautiously, circling back to the uneasiness that had settled in my heart. "I found some receipts today." Her expression shifted, a flicker of something unreadable dancing beneath the surface. "Receipts?" she echoed, her brow furrowing in confusion. "What receipts?" "The credit card statements," I continued, my voice stronger now. "You spent so much money. There's over $50,000 on here." Her eyes widened momentarily, then narrowed, the warmth draining away. "It's just clothes and accessories. You know how stressful the last few months have been for me. I needed this." She gestured vaguely, the motion feeling desperate. "Needed? Harper, do you really think we can afford that kind of spending?" I felt the heat rising within me, an anger tempered by sorrow. "I am working overtime to keep this household afloat. I thought we were a team." "A team." She scoffed, crossing her arms. "You think I am having fun with this? I thought you were supposed to support me. I thought you wanted me to be happy. What good is a team if I feel trapped in this dull, boring life?" Her voice rose higher than I had imagined it would, echoing off the walls like a storm brewing viciously inside her. "Is that what you think this is?" I shot back, my voice trembling slightly as I tried to keep the emotions in check. "A dull, boring life? Do you hear yourself? You're drowning us, Harper. You're living in this swanky world while I'm out there working myself to the bone. This isn't happiness, it's escape." "Escape?" she echoed, a bitterness creeping into her tone. "This is what I want. I deserve it. Is it so wrong to want nice things? You are acting like I have stolen money from us." The way she said deserve struck me like a slap. I felt a bitter laugh bubble up at the thought of all our sacrifices, all our plans for a future together coming undone. "You are stealing from us, Harper. That's what you're doing. You are pretending everything is perfect while racking up debt and lying about how you've been spending money we don't have." The storm surged between us, a violent clash of words and emotions spiraling out of control. I felt the walls of our once happy home closing in, stifling me as I tried to find the right words to make her see. "I'm tired of pretending," I finally admitted, my voice breaking slightly. "Pretending? What do you want me to do? You want me to sit and wait for you to come home night after night, living in a gray world where joy doesn't exist?" Harper's tone shifted then, the readiness to argue turning into something softer, more desperate. "You don't understand what it's like when I see everyone else living these glamorous lives. You don't know how hard it is to feel like I'm missing out on everything." "Often, I feel like I'm missing out too," I said quietly, the truth of that statement weighing heavily between us. Every moment I spent at the office was a reminder that my family was slipping through my fingers, that this wasn't just about debt but about us, our love. "This isn't what we dreamed of, and it feels like we are losing our way." I turned away, my heart heavy with sorrow. I could feel her gaze boring into my back, a mixture of hurt and something darker. The silence between us felt heavy, decisions hanging precariously in the air, and I wondered if there was any way back to what we once had. I felt the walls closing in, and with them, the realization that this was just the beginning of a very long road that lay ahead. One lined with betrayal, resentment, and a longing for the truth that we might never find again. It was a quiet Sunday morning, the soft rays of sunlight filtering through the curtains, casting warm patches on the floor. It should have been a day filled with laughter and joy, especially since today was my mother's birthday. I had planned everything meticulously, from the homemade cake to the hand-picked flowers that would sit on the dining table, a small tribute to the woman who had sacrificed so much. I envisioned my mother, her eyes sparkling with gratitude and love as she enjoyed the company of her family. The thought alone filled me with anticipation, but as I faced the mirror in our bedroom, the gut-wrenching reality of my marriage loomed large. She stood behind me, her presence a looming shadow as we both stared at our reflections. I gently cleared my throat, trying to summon the courage for yet another confrontation. "We need to talk about our finances," I began, my words trailing off as her eyes narrowed, like a predator ready to pounce. "What now?" she snapped, crossing her arms tightly over her chest, her designer dress clinging to her in a way that spoke volumes. "I work hard for my money." "Why should I not treat myself?" "Because it's getting out of control. We cannot afford," I started, but she cut me off, her words sharp as daggers. "Out of control? Is that what you think? Just because you want to hide under a rock doesn't mean I have to follow suit," she shot back, the bitterness in her voice palpable. Each argument was like a rehearsed song, only the melody had transformed into one of resentment and despair. "Harper, I want us to be on the same page." "For the sake of our future," I replied, my voice softer, trying to reach the part of her that once cared. But with each passing day, it felt like I was attempting to connect with a stranger. Her dismissiveness felt like a physical punch to the gut. "I deserve to indulge myself. You can either support me or stay quiet," she said, flipping her hair over her shoulder. It was a bold statement, one that further widened the chasm between us, until the walls felt like they were closing in with every argument. I switched my focus to the kitchen counter, where I had arranged the birthday surprises. The fresh smell of cake wafted through the air, but it only served to remind me of our ever-widening differences. "Today is supposed to be special for Mom. I hoped we could show her how much we appreciate everything she has done for us," I said, desperately trying to anchor our day to something positive. She rolled her eyes dramatically, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Oh, yes, because dressing up like a peacock is going to do that, right?" The sarcasm made my stomach twist. I knew her extravagant choices would only add fuel to the fire that was already our relationship. As the clock ticked closer to the time we were to receive my family, I felt the tension thicken in the air. Finally, we heard the honk of my brother's car pulling into the driveway. An ominous sense of dread washed over me as I glanced at Harper, who had suddenly disappeared into the depths of our closet. I had hoped that maybe, just maybe, she would tone things down this one day. I envisioned the door closing behind her to reveal a more understated attire, something that wouldn't scream self-indulgence. When she emerged moments later, it felt like time had suspended. The light caught her dress, a silk creation that glittered like a trophy reflecting endless luxury. It was vibrant, perhaps too vibrant for a family gathering. "What do you think?" she asked, turning around and flaunting herself as if she were on a runway, oblivious to the storm brewing within me. "I think," my voice faltered, disbelief overshadowing my thoughts. "You look stunning, but there is no but," she interrupted, her tone stiffening like an unyielding wall. "I'm wearing what makes me happy. End of discussion." The finality of her statement weighed heavily on my heart. The last thing I needed was another round in our ongoing battle. As my family started to arrive, I stood still, watching the smiles on their faces dissolve into disbelief when Harper made her entrance. My mother's expression was particularly heartbreaking. The joy quickly morphed into a look of confusion, then sadness as she clutched her hands. I could almost see the realization dawn on her. This was not a birthday celebration, but a display of wealth that screamed insensitivity. "Wow, Harper, that dress is something else," my brother said, trying to mask the awkwardness with forced cheerfulness. The laughter felt strained, like thin ice cracking underfoot. My mother nervously attempted to change the subject, but the whispers rippled through the room. "Who spends that much on a dress? Is she out of her mind?" My sister murmured just loud enough for me to hear, her eyes wide with disbelief. The fire in my chest ignited with each hushed remark, and I felt my heart race, pounding against my ribcage. It was a humiliation that cut deeper than any argument ever had. I looked at her, and for the first time, I realized I stood powerless amidst the chaos, a mere bystander in my own life. The anger was swift like a river breaking through a dam, flooding my thoughts with potential ways to shake the foundations of our crumbling relationship. It simmered just beneath my skin, waiting for the perfect moment to unleash itself. I was tired of being the one who tried to compromise, tired of being pushed aside for her selfishness and self-indulgence. The party proceeded amid nervous laughter and forced smiles, and I could feel my mother's heart breaking, just like mine. I glanced at Harper across the room, soaking in the attention while my mother stood in silence, and I vowed that this humiliation would not be the end of the story. It was merely the beginning of my revenge. That ignoble day, when the sun barely broke through the haze, marked a turning point in my heart and mind. I could almost feel the tension in the air wrap around me as I sifted through the mound of receipts and bank statements I had collected over the past few weeks. There, in my dimly lit office, each slip of paper bore the weight of my wife's consuming need for validation, her extravagant purchases a mockery of the grueling hours I'd spent to keep our household afloat. The dull thud of a nearby clock echoed as I meticulously organized every document, a symphony of ticking that punctuated the bile rising in my throat. I picked up a crisp receipt for a designer handbag, one that surely cost more than my last paycheck, and something twisted inside me. My hands trembled slightly as I placed it in the binder, where the vibrant colors and bold logos seemed to jump from the page, taunting me. The rage boiled like a storm, each receipt a little fire stoking the inferno in my gut. I leaned back in my chair, a wave of exhaustion washing over me. This is what it had come to, collecting evidence against the woman I once loved, the woman I thought I knew. How had we ended up here? The images of happy moments flooded through my mind like a cruel slideshow that I could not stop. As I thumbed through the binder filled with our shattered dreams, I could hear a distant sound, her voice, lilting and carefree, chattering away on the phone in the living room, probably discussing plans for another extravagance she had her eyes on. At that moment, my stomach twisted tighter, a noose of anger constricting my resolve. I had decided this was it. She had become a stranger amid glittering baubles, and I was done letting it slide. The cries of betrayal echoed like a broken record, unrelenting. "Who are you talking to?" I called out, my voice dripping with feigned casualness. I wanted her to see the calm surface while raging beneath it. The air felt thick with tension like a dam about to burst. I wanted to rip away the layers of pretense, but I needed to play it cool for just a bit longer. "Just some friends," she replied, the chipper tone making my skin crawl. "Friends?" I repeated, my words now edged with a sharp bite. "What friends? The ones you buy things for or the ones who buy things for you?" I could feel the heat in my cheeks rising, my heart thumping fiercely against my ribs, each beat echoing my resolve. A breath of silence hung in the air like a taut string, stretching longer and longer until I feared it would snap. "What do you mean?" she asked, confusion morphing into defensiveness. I could tell she felt the shift in our atmosphere, the way it hung thick and heavy. "You know exactly what I mean," I replied, my voice low but steady, my internal fury giving strength to my words. "You've been racking up bills like they are trophies in some sick contest. What's really going on, Harper?" A nervous laugh slipped out of her mouth, trying to mask the truth I had pushed into the light. "You're overreacting. It's just a few things here and there. Every woman deserves to treat herself, don't you think? What happened to the promises we made? The goals we set together?" I felt a surge of desperation as I questioned the dust-laden dreams we once held dear. "Our family should feel respected, not buried under a mountain of your wants." The pause that followed was deafening as her smile cracked ever so slightly. "You're being dramatic," she finally retorted, but I could see the cracks in her facade. There was tension behind her eyes, the way she shifted uncomfortably, betraying the confidence in her voice. "I am not being dramatic. You need to see this," I said, my voice rising from a whisper to a near shout. I stood, collecting the binder from my cluttered desk. The sound of its cover snapping shut echoed as I approached her, the weight of every document pushing down on my shoulders. "Look at this. This is your reality. You are living a lie." I slapped the binder on the coffee table, the papers spilling out like explosive confetti, each receipt serving as a piece of evidence against the hollow ideals we once cherished. "This," I pointed forcefully, "this is proof of your reckless spending." Her expression shifted from irritation to shock as she stared down at the colorful chaos I had unleashed on our once peaceful home. "You went through my things," she accused, her voice shaky. "It's our things, Harper, our lives. And you're the only one running wild in your world of consumption while I'm here, working endless hours to keep this ship afloat." I had crossed a boundary, and I saw it in her eyes. "Do you even care?" I continued, my voice cracking under the weight of rejection. Or is it just all about how you feel, how you look? This isn't fair, she snapped back, her tone rising equally to meet my fury. I thought you understood me. I thought you wanted me to enjoy life. This is just stuff. I raised my hand in exasperation, trying to gather my thoughts. It's not just stuff. It's a symptom of larger issues between us. You're chasing validation through all of this. You're tearing us apart. The rage surged again, demanding to be freed, but I fought against it, trying to reclaim the logic in a situation that felt utterly chaotic. Her eyes narrowed, and for a moment I thought I saw fear beneath her defiance. What do you want from me? I want the truth. I want the woman I married back, the one who believed in us. The emotional dam I had been holding back began to crack, threatening to spill over in a torrent of raw emotion. But as I stood there, waiting for a glimpse of understanding, her gaze hardened, a wall rising between us that felt insurmountable. Maybe the real question is, do you still believe in me? I felt the world around us blur, everything falling into an uncomfortable silence. In that moment, both of us inhaled breathlessly as the true reality of our unraveling marriage settled like a weight on our shoulders. As the silence expanded, I looked deeper into her eyes, sensing a war of wills brewing, realization dawning that nothing would be solved this way. It was a shattered moment of understanding. The looming longing for resolution crackled in the air, waiting for the power I now wielded. I had amassed the evidence, the truth laid bare before me, and I couldn't help but feel that the tide had finally begun to shift. The atmosphere in the room felt thick, as if the air itself had conspired with my growing anticipation. I sat on the edge of our bed, my heart racing wildly as I thought about the weight of the pending confrontation. The nervous energy ignited by my careful preparations sparked a mixture of fear and exhilaration that tingled in my fingertips. I could picture it all the moment when my wife hit the wall of truth, the crumbling facade of denial that would soon overshadow her defense. I glanced at my phone, the screen illuminating the darkened room with a cascade of notifications, each one a tiny heart pounding against my chest, a countdown of sorts until the moment of reckoning. When my wife's mother's name appeared on the screen, I felt a rush of adrenaline rush through me again, pushing me towards my goal. I had meticulously crafted my revenge, stitching the tapestry of deception together with painstaking care. I had painted my struggles with vivid brush strokes in my text to her mother, revealing the stark disparity between my wife's extravagant lifestyle and my own financial strife. It was time for her to see the truth behind the polished image that her daughter projected. The room was silent as I waited. Then, the unmistakable sound of my wife's phone vibrating against the dresser broke the stillness. My heart raced faster, the anticipation spiraling into something electric. She walked into the room, her face lit up with a smile that quickly faltered as she reached for her device. "What's this?" she asked, her brow furrowing as she read the incoming messages. That cheerful expression melted into confusion when she realized who it was from. "Mom." Suddenly, I was acutely aware of the tension radiating from her, like heat waves rising from asphalt on a scorching day. There was power in the air, a palpable energy that made the hairs on my arms stand on end. Every sound seemed amplified, the creak of the floorboards under her shifting weight, the rustle of the curtains fluttering from the open window, even the ticking of the wall clock seemed to echo in my ears. "Harper, can you come here for a sec?" Her mother's voice crackled through the phone, authoritative and steady. I watched as my wife's face drained of color. My heart thundered in my chest, doubt flickering momentarily within my mind, battling against the excitement that surged through me. Had I gone too far? But then I was reminded of how she had plucked joy from our lives like a thoughtless child pulling petals from a flower, paying no consideration for the broken stem left behind. The need to reclaim my position reignited my resolve. "Yes, I'm here, Mom," she replied slowly, her voice strained, cracking like thin ice beneath a weight. "What's wrong?" The silence on the line was thick, stretching out like a rubber band pulled taut. My wife could feel the tension, and the realization swept over her, her eyes darting back to me, panic glimmering within their depths. I leaned back against the headboard, creating space, unveiling the distance she had placed between us. "I just spoke with your husband," her mother said, her tone cool and unyielding. "He has some concerns that I think we need to address immediately." "Mom, please," my wife stammered, desperation creeping into her voice. She fidgeted with the hem of her shirt, shifting from foot to foot as if she were trying to find stability on a sinking boat. "What did he say?" "Do not play games with me, Harper. I have seen the evidence. The trips, the shopping sprees. How much did you spend on that new handbag? Do you even realize what you have put him through? Each word fell like a hammer, pounding my wife's previous defenses to dust. Her eyes widened, disbelief taking root as she processed the words, the truth piercing her like 1,000 arrows. I could almost taste the faint tang of remorse in the air, anger interlacing with her confusion, creating a perfect storm. Mom, you have to understand. I wasn't trying to hurt him, I thought. She faltered, her thoughts slipping away like grains of sand through her fingers. Thought what, Harper? Her mother pressed, a note of disappointment creeping into her voice. That you could keep living like this without consequences. He is drowning, and you've wrapped him in chains of your own making. Each syllable struck me, a reminder of how deep the wounds had run for so long. I could see her resorting to do that thing where she would pull back, arms crossed, wall rising. But now the realization painted her expression with regret and anxiety, a cocktail of emotions swirling on her features. I was just trying to live, she finally whispered, almost to herself. I thought he would understand. Live how? Her mother retorted, her voice filled with a fierce resolve. By sucking the life out of him? If you can't see how selfish that is, I don't even know what to say to you right now. The silence enveloped my wife, smothering any retort she might have summoned. I watched her cheeks flush, the red creeping up to the tips of her ears. For a fleeting moment, pity washed over me. I wanted to reach out, comfort her, but I quickly smothered the thought like an ember that dared to spark into flames. This was the moment I had waited for. I had done everything meticulously, and to pull back now would be to lose my grip on the edge of my own liberation. I love you, Harper. Her mother's voice softened, but not without an edge. But you need to face what you have done. I cannot have your father or me paying for the life you fancy. If you want to fix this, you have to start with honesty. I could almost hear her soul crack in that moment, the truth raining down upon her like a storm. She stood frozen, unable to grasp the reality that had descended upon her, her mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. I could see her entire world tilting, the architecture of her carefully crafted lies starting to crumble. My heart raced, the hope entwining with the adrenaline coursing through my veins. Perhaps this moment would finally break the cycle. Maybe she would see that the cost of her choices was far greater than she ever anticipated. It felt good, watching her realize that the pillars of her perfect life had been built on the shifting sands of deception. I held my breath, waiting to see if she would fall or rise from the ashes of her own making when her mother disowned her on the spot. The room swallowed her whole. Harper's face turned a pale shade of disbelief, and the arrogance that usually colored her features drained away faster than the colors of a painted canvas left too long in the sun. It was hard to see. This was a woman who had always wrapped herself in the comfort of material possessions, believing that they could shield her from everything, including the consequences of her reckless choices. For once, the firefighter of her self-indulgent life emptied the bank to snuff out her pride. All that wealth and security evaporated like mist in the morning sunlight. "You can't be serious," she said, her voice breaking like glass under pressure. The words were laced with desperation, a stark contrast to her usual playful tone when she flaunted her latest spoils. "I have never been more serious in my life, Harper," her mother replied, her voice as steely as granite. There was an unforgiving sharpness in her tone, the kind that could cut through the thickest of defenses. Harper stood there, her breaths growing quick and shallow as if she were about to drown. "You think you can just do whatever you want and expect me to clean up your messes? Those days are over." I watched from the corner of the room, my heart thrumming in my chest, my own inner turmoil layered with a grim satisfaction. Each crack in Harper's facade felt like a dagger of hope piercing through the thick fog of our pain. I should have felt more compassion, perhaps even an urge to comfort her, but instead I felt a rush of relief. The woman I had once loved, the one who wore her success like a crown, was collapsing under the weight of her own choices. "Mom, please. I know I messed up, but I can fix it. Just give me another chance," she pleaded, her voice trailing off, tears forcing their way down her cheeks, shimmering in the soft light of the room like tiny shards of glass. "I will make it right, I promise." But there was no softening in her mother's expression, no hint of forgiveness that might draw her back in. "You have had chances, countless chances, and what have you done with them? You squandered our family's name, our legacy, all for some fleeting thrill. Look around you, Harper. This does not just affect you, it affects everyone who has ever stood by you." The resolve in her mother's voice sent shivers down my spine. For decades, Harper had swept her transgressions under the rug, but now it was all unspooling before her with brutal clarity. I could see the gears turning in her mind, the realization crashing over her like the weight of a relentless tide. But Mom, I just wanted to feel something more. I wanted to be happy. It was strange to see her beg like this, not just for forgiveness, but for understanding, as if happiness could excuse the wreckage she left behind. Happiness. Her mother scoffed, shaking her head. You think happiness is found through shopping sprees and parties? Happiness comes from connections, from love. That world you have created for yourself is a house of cards, Harper. It will all come crumbling down, and when it does, you'll have no one to blame but yourself. Those words twisted in the air, a dark melody of truth that began to sink into her. It hung there, heavy and oppressive, suffocating any remnants of the brave front she had put on. I could see her shoulders slump, the fight draining from her as reality clawed at her bones. She had built her entire life on the foundations of others, convinced they would always be there to catch her when she fell. But they had tired of being her safety net. Please, I'll do anything. Just don't disown me, she begged, desperation clawing through her voice now, raw and exposed. I need you. The last word echoed, bouncing off the walls, a haunting plea that echoed the depth of her loss, the one thing she always proclaimed she would never let go of. But you need to learn, Harper, her mother replied firmly, though there was a weariness there that I had never seen before. If I don't do this now, you will never learn. You stitch up your wounds with money instead of love, and that, my daughter, is a broken way to live. You are a grown woman, but you live like a child. The silence that followed was piercing. Harper's pacing intensified, an innate restless energy tethered to her mounting anguish. She moved like a wild animal in a cage, circling, waiting for an escape that would not come. No, 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 she muttered, almost as if trying to convince herself this was all a terrible nightmare she could shake off. You can't do this to me. You can't just take everything away. Her voice broke, her emotional outpouring now raw enough to crack the very air around us. What about the house in Riverview, the car? The mention of the car seemed to ring through the room, a hollow reminder of all the times she had cared more about external validation than about her family. Do you think money can fix this? Her mother shot back. You have taken my love for granted. This isn't about money, it's about respect, about dignity, about being a part of this family. You have made a mockery of it all. At that moment, I felt a pang of regret. I remembered the good times, the moments when we laughed, the kisses we shared in stolen moments, and I wondered if there was still a chance for redemption. But then, the memories of the days filled with tension and betrayal overwhelmed me. A tumultuous cocktail of feelings swirled in my chest, but every time I pulled up a memory of pain she had inflicted on my family, the regret fizzled into nothing. I can't believe this is happening. You are all I have, she whispered, her voice cracking. What am I supposed to do without you? Her eyes filled with tears again, this time a deep ocean of sorrow, dark and unfathomable, as she faced the reality that she was now entirely alone in this. In that moment, I saw her for what she truly was, a woman cloaked in bravado and insecurity, desperately seeking validation in all the wrong places. Watching her confront the truth was excruciating, yet I couldn't look away. This, I thought, was a moment she needed to grasp, to understand that her choices had led her down this path. The gulf created by her extravagant indulgences had yawned wide enough to swallow more than wealth. It had devoured family ties, trust, and love. The air hung thick with unresolved pain, and even through all the bitterness, I hoped that perhaps this was the catalyst for change, for growth. But as Harper stood there, trembling with the weight of what she had lost and what she had taken for granted, I doubted she could muster the strength to step across that gaping chasm. She was raw, exposed, and for the first time in our lives, painfully alone as I stood by the kitchen window, the sunlight streamed through the glass, warm and inviting, clashing with the storm still brewing inside me. It was amusing how something so simple, a ray of light, could pierce through the heavy shadows of my life. I turned my gaze away from the bright day outside, feeling the weight of my decision settle on my shoulders like a heavy cloak. I had finally done it. I had taken a stand for my family. The echoes of that tumultuous event still rang in my ears, vibrating against the walls of my mind, reminding me of the chaos that had unraveled my marriage. Do you really think you can get through this without their help? Her voice had been sharp, edged with disbelief, like a knife glinting in the harsh kitchen lights. I had cringed at the way she spat those words at me as if they were venom. The disdain in her eyes, once filled with warmth, now shot daggers that left marks on my heart. You will see, you cannot survive without them. Not asking for help, Harper, I had responded coolly. We're better off without that financial cushion if it is held up by strings attached to unhealthy expectations. I remembered the way my hands had trembled slightly, a small tremor that betrayed the storm turning in my chest. The words had tasted bitter, yet they came out as a declaration of independence. Now, as I gazed outside at the lively green of the trees in our yard, I felt something shocking: relief. As twisted as it sounded, watching my wife grapple with the harsh reality of her newfound independence made me feel a sense of closure. Life without the soft, plush security of her parents' influence had begun to hit her like a cold wave. My heart tightened briefly at the thought. Was it cruel to feel this way? I then caught my own reflection in the window, a mixture of sorrow and strength staring back at me. What had seemed like an unbearable weight was now lifting, clearing my mind for new possibilities, thoughts of rebuilding. Maybe this is what it takes for both of us, I murmured to myself, the words hanging in the air like the scent of fresh coffee brewing in the corner. The aroma wrapped around me, drawing me back to the present where my mother sat at the kitchen table, eyes turned down to the surface, tracing the patterns on the old wood. She had been there through it all, her presence like a lighthouse guiding me through the chaotic storm. "How are you holding up?" she finally asked, glancing at me as I turned from the window. Her voice was soft but carried an edge of concern. I could see the worry etched on her face, and for a moment I felt guilty for what had transpired, for the turmoil now surrounding us. "I am okay, Mom," I replied, forcing a smile even though my heart ached. I think we will be okay." Those words felt foreign, and yet they also held a weight of their own. Her eyes scrutinized mine, searching for cracks, but there was determination in my heart that shone through the fissures of grief. "I've never been one to shy away from adversity." "You're strong like your father," she said, her voice thick with emotion. It reminded me of the numerous late-night heart-to-heart conversations we had shared in this very kitchen. I could still remember the smell of her favorite jasmine tea sliding along the air, wrapping us in tales of resilience. Her respect was different now. It had shifted from concern to pride, and I found a newfound strength within me, bolstered by her belief in my choices. "I just wish it didn't have to come to this," she continued, stirring the cup in front of her absent-mindedly. "Your father always said that family comes first, no matter the price." She paused, her gaze falling to the table. "But look at you, standing for what's right." I could feel the sting in her words. Our family had always been synonymous with monetary success, a pillar of support leveraged against potential failures. What if, I thought, this time standing for something more than money means standing for love? I took a deep breath, visualizing a new home for our family, one devoid of financial strings. "When I look at her, sometimes I don't recognize her anymore," I confessed, the words spilling out like a confession, a release. "She's changed, Mom. It's like the money was a part of who she is, and without it, she doesn't know how to stand on her own." My mother sighed deeply, her eyes shimmering with understanding. "It's hard to grow without that cushion. Life teaches us lessons in ways we never expect. I know it might seem like I am the monster here," I continued, voice cracking slightly, "but if holding her accountable leads to her growth, then maybe it is necessary. Sometimes you have to break to heal," she counseled gently, her hand reaching across the table. I nodded, appreciating her words as they sunk deep into my soul. As I sipped my coffee, the heat burned against the back of my throat, a reminder that I was alive, that I had choices, that tomorrow was unwritten. A part of me mourned what I had lost, the love I had committed my life to, and yet in this quiet moment I felt like I was rediscovering myself amidst the rubble of hurt. Forgiveness, I silently hoped, could one day find its way into my heart. "I just need time, Mom. We both do," I said, looking her squarely in the eyes. In that gaze, I found a tender acknowledgement of the complexities around us. We were living through a storm of emotional upheaval, but I sensed a newfound respect blossoming between us, a bridge built anew, perhaps, with each smoothed-out conversation. "Then let it take the time it needs," she said softly, a gentle smile creeping up her lips. "Remember, you're not alone in this." As we sat there, slowly sipping our coffees, the air filled with the unspoken understanding of both joy and sorrow, I could finally envision a future paved with respect, love, and hope, rebuilding from the remnants of a life that no longer served us. While my heart was still cracked, the pieces were starting to find their place, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a subtle flicker of something powerful: freedom.